everybody. I have Ed with me today, and we're going to be talking about RPA specifically in the insurance industry. But before we get going, can you give everybody a quick introduction?
I certainly can. I am Ed Halsey. I am COO of a challenger broker, which is a new phrase we're coining from challenger banks, called Hubb. Hubb standing for honest usage-based broking. We're looking to kind of reimagine what the commercial insurance broking market looks like, incorporating a lot more automation in the process to drive out value to the customer.
Well, great. And thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited that we finally get to collaborate. We've been going back and forth on LinkedIn for a while, so this is a fun one for me. So
Absolutely.
a couple of weeks ago, you posted a video that was 93 use cases for RPA within the insurance industry. So to get us started, I'm not going to ask you to go back through that full 93. I will put a link to that in the post. But can you share one of those examples with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think automation and RPA in particular are absolutely perfect for the insurance industry. We have a ton of manual processes. I used to joke when I was an underwriter once upon a time that, I spent probably 90% of my day administrating the 10% of actual underwriting that I did, such as the amount of manual process. So there's absolutely tons you're doing. A really good example that's always really frustrated me is, for example, bordereau. And bordereau is a very insurancy term, so I'll simplify what bordereau are for the viewers. So where you have a program, an insurance program, where delegated authority has been given, i.e. an insurer has given permission to a third party to place insurance on or write insurance on their behalf. They have a thing called bordereau. And what the bordereau is at the end of every month, the person with the delegated authority under the program creates a spreadsheet and sends it to the insurer that says, this is everything that we've bound cover on in the last month. So this is everything that we've written on your behalf at the end of the month. Now that's often 30 days after the end of the month. So that insurer doesn't actually know what they're on cover for until often 60 days after cover has been held. So they've been on cover for 2 months before they know it. Now that to me is bonkers, not just that process, which I think anyone would agree. Why is that not just an API pushing the data back and forth? But the fact that it's 60 days after that they're receiving it, that's mad to me. And also that the broker or the MGA who has that delegated authority is often manually typing it from their system into a spreadsheet to send on unsecurely through email onto the insurer for them to then type that information into their system at the end. So classic swivel chair activity for RPA that just really should be automated, if not pushed through an API. But legacy technology often prevents that, unfortunately.
You get bonus points for using the word bonkers there, because it's one of my favorite.
I'm very English at that point, right?
And I agree with that. Talking through that scenario, it's crazy to me the amount of manual processes that can still be there, because especially in this industry, sometimes there's a fallacy that because automation is available, organizations are automatically taking advantage of the tools. And I would imagine a lot of the folks that are doing this process probably have some type of automation capabilities within their organization that they just haven't extended to that point or identified this as a really great use case. So thank you for diving into that with me. But one of the things that we were talking about while we were getting ready for this conversation is you mentioned you are the COO of Hubb. You're not in RPA sales. So you're certainly not creating this video to sell a bunch of RPA, to talk about use cases from that perspective. So can you dive into why you made this video? Because it isn't exactly what you're selling or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
No, so I actually come from a background, interestingly, in RPA sales. So I had a very brief stint selling that into the insurance industry. But that was as part of my wider focus, which is really digitizing the insurance process. It was something that was of interest to me, because anything that improves how people buy insurance or how insurers or MGAs or brokers sell insurance is of massive interest to me. So that's where my background was in there and where I kind of delved into this. But in terms of creating it, just because I want to encourage, I want the industry to be better. I want the industry to improve. I want to see us at our very best, because I think insurance is a fantastic career path. I would be delighted if my son went into it. I have a little 6-year-old. If he went into insurance, I'd be delighted. I think it's an incredible place. But I recently tweeted something probably about 6 months ago. So not that recently, but about 6 months ago, I tweeted about, we need to make insurance great again. And somebody came up really quickly and said to me, was insurance ever great in the first place? And I thought that was a really interesting point, because I think insurance has the absolute potential to be great as an industry. I think what it stands for is great. We protect people at their lowest point. What an amazing industry to be a part of, that when something goes wrong, we'll be the ones that are there to pick up the pieces. So in principle, insurance should be great. But I think some of the things that we do, we need to improve our public perception of what insurance is. That I think is a massive piece of work that we need to do. But also just to take out all of that manual process that stops us doing the human things, which is when someone has an insurance claim, do you know what they want? They want to be able to pick up the phone and they want to speak to someone who can empathize down the phone with them, who can literally say to them, don't worry, it'll be all right. We're going to help you with this. It's going to be the human things that a computer can never do.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I did an interview with a fellow connection of ours, Brian Falchuk. This was almost a year ago now, going back to recently. And one of the things that we talked a lot about was the idea of insurance not necessarily being cool, and needing to change that because of the mission that's at the heart of insurance. And sometimes we lose sight of that. And he was joking that, he never, when he met his wife, he didn't necessarily want to say like, oh yeah, I'm in insurance, because it's not the most exciting thing as like a pickup line, but it is an incredibly important industry. And to your point, if we can bring empathy and take out some of the monotony, you can probably focus on that mission a little bit more. As we take a look at the industry and how executives can help support digital transformation, maybe this connection back to the mission, what are things that leaders in insurance companies should be doing to evangelize digital transformation, whether that's learning something or doing something? I guess, what advice do you have for other leaders?
So firstly, two quick things to go back to your earlier point. Shout out to Brian, who's got a new book out. I wouldn't be doing a good job if I didn't shout out. I was actually looking to see if it was on my desk.
That's actually very true, because we just did another interview on that book. So I'll include that in the comments as well.
Amazing. I have his book. I have it in hand, but it's on my bedstand because I've been reading it and it's excellent. So shout out to Brian for that. Secondly, I did talk to my wife about the fact I worked in insurance when we first met. And I still remember one of our early dates when I was sat in a restaurant with her and I looked to the right and then bored her on the history of Redcare GSM NACOS approved alarms, because I saw on the window that it was that's how boring I was. And it was when she stuck around at that point that I knew that this was the lady for me. And we've just had our 10-year anniversary. So it didn't work too badly, but thank you very much. But yeah, she's fantastic and put up with me talking about it. But in terms of leadership and what they can do, so I have this kind of frustration about leveling up, right? And that it's everyone's job to level up, and it's everyone's job to be at the forefront. And quite often, I think back to earlier in my career when we did a lot of work with Excel spreadsheets and the like, and people would say to me that, some of the older members of the team would say to me, well, I just don't understand this stuff. I don't understand it. And I used to look at them and I'd say, well, I wasn't born understanding it. I didn't understand how Excel worked. I didn't understand how technology worked when I came out the womb. It wasn't something I was born with. And I learned it over time because I committed to learning it and I spent time with it. And that's how anyone learns anything, right? And I think at the highest levels, one of my biggest frustration about digital transformation is that I'm not sure it comes from the top down as much as it can. I think it gets fed up the chain rather than necessarily getting fed down it. And that might be unfair, it will be unfair of some, but I just think at the highest levels, people need to be really au fait with what's out there, what's possible. And then when they manage downwards in terms of their strategy, they're in a better position to include all of these technological advancements into their overall operating model.
I really like that you just said you didn't come out knowing how to use Excel, because that's one of the biggest messages, that you can learn it and you can learn anything at any stage in your life. You just have to take the step to put the work in and figure it out. And that's part of the beautiful part of the world that we live in today, is there's lots of people like you and I who are out here trying to help people learn all about the world of digital transformation, or how you can do things more effectively within your business. So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and talk through this. And I want to encourage everybody to make your way over to Ed's LinkedIn. Like I said, I spend a lot of time there interacting with his posts. I think the content is great. There's insurance specific stuff, there's sales things, there's also just general musings on life every once in a while. So make sure that you check them out. And like I said, I will link to that video that we mentioned earlier in the discussion as well. But thank you so much, Ed, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
If you're looking for expert tips on how to get started with your transformation, or looking to hone in on your approach, make sure that you subscribe to our channel to catch our weekly Digital Transformation Talk series, where we interview experts from around the world on how to make it happen.